Um, so I guess to get started, what do you do with Tommy Bartlett, and um, how do you set the? I guess what's your job every day?
Well, I think I've been running the show for the past 52 years, and number one, it's quite an accomplishment for something in the entertainment industry or the service industry to not only be successful over a long period of time, but have a positive impact on both our visitors and our workers. Tommy started the show in 1953, so this was our 66th year performing in the Dells. It played to probably 25 million people over that 66-year period. And so all I have tried to do is to carry on the tradition that Tommy instilled upon me way back in the late 60s and early 70s, and that is to provide high quality, clean, wholesome entertainment to our visitors, and to always give them more value for what they spent for their tickets than what their expectations were. So, of course, different times of the year, my responsibilities are totally different. So certainly, from the first part of May until the end of September, it's totally focused on the day-to-day activities of running the operation. We have now about 120 young people working every summer. Could be in high school, could be in college, and of course our entertainers on top of that are professionals who do this for a living. What I try to focus on is to make sure that our staff understands the importance of what their contribution to the company is. At the beginning of the year, I'll hold a meeting and try to impress upon them that we're in the hospitality business. We're very fortunate because we're in the business of putting smiles on people's faces, and people do have choices. They don't have to come to Wisconsin Dells. They certainly don't have to come to the Tommy Bartlett show. So the word of mouth recommendations that people get, and of course in today's day and age, it's social media that is so critical to the overall image that your company has. But I tell these kids, I don't care if you're working in the parking lot or whether you're picking up garbage or whether you're the star of the show. Everyone is an integral part of the overall success, and we are no better in achieving that than what our employees put forth. So if, for example, one of our parking lot attendants does something rude to someone who's parking, and a typical thing would be they want to park someplace where our parkers are not parking them. And what we try to do is instill upon them to accommodate every guest no matter what it is, because when people come in, they have a very high expectation of what their day is going to be with us. And if one of our staff members does something that takes that high expectation and puts it way down low, I don't care how good the show is, we will never get that customer back because we have set a bad example on the front end. So a lot of my focus throughout the summer is to try to be a mentor to the 120 kids. I think my style of management for our operation and for the fact that we're basically a seasonal operation is so important, because what I try to do is to teach kids responsibilities. If they live with us, they have to learn how to get along with their peers. They have to interact with customers all the time. And so, quite frankly, we're trying to mold personalities and promote strong work ethics, and to make sure that the customer has a wonderful experience with us. Because if they didn't, we wouldn't be in business any longer.
Right. So how do you choose the skiers that you hire for the show?
Normally we have many more skiers who want to work for us than we have openings on the staff. And one of the reasons for that is at one point in time there probably was 7 or 8 venues throughout the United States that had water ski shows. So the supply of skiers that were available in a lot of cases weren't able to fill the spots at these shows. What's happened over time is I don't care whether it's SeaWorld or was Disney when they had it, whether it was Cypress Gardens or whatever it was, the workman's comp insurance for skiers has skyrocketed, and so what that means is if you're a large company that has thousands of employees and you have a high incidence of injuries in your ski department, that's going to affect your overall experience modification, which ultimately overshadows all the other employees that are working. So most of those companies have gotten out of the water ski shows, or they've done it with subcontractors to produce watered-down versions of water skiing. Right now, we are the only water ski show in the United States that puts on a full production show lasting 45 to 55 minutes on a daily basis. Legoland, which took over Cypress Gardens, has a very short half-hour themed with characters. It's not meant to be entertaining people with a theatrical production with skill levels that are unbelievable, the things that we do today. So generally speaking, we have I would say that 2018 we had the most talented collection of water skiers that have ever been assembled anywhere in the United States. I mean, we have 6 guys that can do back flips. It wasn't all that long ago where you're lucky to find 1 or 2 people that can do them. We just have a very talented pool, and a lot of it is thanks to Tommy Bartlett, who way back in the 50s understood that you had to have a pool of skiers that had to be developed. So generally speaking, back then all the skiers came from the state of Florida, where they could ski 12 months of the year. But now Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa have so many amateur clubs that are in existence. I think probably in Wisconsin there's 16 or 17 of them alone. And so a team from Wisconsin historically wins the national tournament every single year, and they have 3 divisions. And so now we have so many kids in Wisconsin who are learning show skiing and, ultimately want to ski at our show.
Awesome. So what do you like most about the job?
What I like the most about it are 2 things. Number one, working with the 120 young people each and every day all summer long, and as I've said many times, I get my highs of this job when people write 5 years, 10 years, 15 years after they've left us and say that was the most integral part of the development of their life, was working at the Tommy Bartlett show during the summer or 2 or 3 or 4 that they were with us, because of what they learned, and it's carried on throughout their life. And there's not a year that goes by that I don't get 4 or 5 of those types of letters. And this year Joey Lincecum, who was our longtime water ski show director, passed away, and 3 weeks ago we had a celebration of his life in the Dells, and as you would expect, the majority of the people returning were water skiers, because those are the people that he touched. And there were at least a handful of people who came up to me at the event and just reiterated what I had just said to you about how important their time at Tommy Bartlett's was in the development of their life. The second thing that I get my highs and work are when customers, and they don't know me from anybody. I'm just standing there with an orange shirt on, like the other 120 people are. They'll come up to me and say, "That show was absolutely fantastic. I don't know what we expected, but this far exceeded anything we expected." And so again, the ability to put smiles on people's faces is such an important ingredient in our overall philosophy on running the business.
Yeah, I know I definitely have enjoyed seeing the show and working out there back in 2014. But this summer I saw that it was 10 years since the big Dells flooding, and I know you took a huge part in helping the Dells pick themselves back up. And so what steps did you have to take to fix the Dells that summer?
Well, certainly the lake breaching never even entered my mind. When I start doing risk analysis on what are the biggest risks facing us, my biggest concern has always been inclement weather, a tornado coming in when we have a lot of people in the stands for the safety of our people. When the breach occurred, obviously it was devastating not only to us, but certainly to any business that was utilizing Lake Delton as part of their business model, whether it was a restaurant or whether it was a duck operation or motels or the marina. It was widespread. There were about 22 businesses that were adversely affected. Unfortunately, little did any of us know, but during the last ice age, where the breach occurred is exactly where the creek used to be that flowed to the Wisconsin River. And when the glacier receded, it filled that ravine up with sugar sand, and then the creek found a new way to go to the Wisconsin River, which of course is where the dam was. Had we known that area was where the creek used to be, we could have sandbagged over there and kept the water from going underneath the homes where the 5 homes were lost where the breach occurred. And basically what happened is the lake went up 2.5 to 3 feet. The water undermined went underneath the homes, and down by the river, it created an emulsion similar to what would happen if you were at a beach and you built a castle out of the sand. As soon as the wave comes up, there's no integrity at all. It becomes an emulsion because there's no way for the water to be absorbed. It just creates an emulsion. So once the breach occurred and we were out of business for the summer, quite frankly, I thought, well, that's going to be it'll take forever if it was even possible to fix the lake. It was a 55-year run, and we had a great thing, and just going to have to get to September 30th, make sure every single employee is paid, and because if I had to lay off a high school or a college, in the first part of June when people all the jobs are filled and everything. So Margaret, my wife, and I, first thought was making sure that we live up to our commitments to these young people and get through the summer. And we asked Wes Harrison and Peter Tasso, 2 of our longtime second half entertainers, to come back, and we put on more of a sky and stage show. And unfortunately, we only played to about 10% of the people that we normally would have played to. During that summer, I couldn't understand it because I thought, well, gee, Tommy Bartlett has provided high-quality entertainment for all these years. What did they think we were going to do? Not have a good show. We had a good show, but there just wasn't any water to it. And then, of course, it hits you right between the eye when it. So, again, we played that summer to about 10% of the people that we normally would play to, and I was disappointed, of course. But then when you stop and think about it, when you put on water ski shows for 55 years, what did you expect if you didn't have one? So um, then, of course, in October, the financial crisis took place with the mortgage problems and the banks and everything else. So, of course, there was no one that was going to be wanting to look at 50 acres of land and 3,500 feet of lake frontage on a lake that was dry. So the focus had to be, how are we going to get this lake fixed so that all 21 businesses can be in existence for the next summer? Because if they went 2 years without any business, none of them could have made it. So Governor Diehl had reached out to me and wanted me to spearhead the rebuilding of it, and he was very forceful in talking to the Secretary of the Department of Natural Resources and the Secretary of the Department of Transportation to say he didn't want any inner fighting between agencies. He wanted emergency rules used, and he wanted this lake fixed and rebuilt and brought back to its original use, and he wanted it done at the time frame that I put forth. So that made it so much easier because you're not fighting every minute of the day wondering who's going to try and throw a monkey wrench into this process. So I credit Governor Diehl so much, and that's the way the public and the private sector should work. So we worked on it collectively. We got the breach filled. We got the proper soils in. We put in a bentonite slurry dam, which you can't see. It's an underground below the surface dam. And then we rebuilt the regular dam to make it more efficient so it could pass more water through. And it was done by the 1st of April. And in 2009, the lake was at full pool, and we were back in business. And you'll get a kick out of it. Our campaign that summer was even the water's new. So it was a wonderful thing for all 21 of the businesses, and certainly the Dells area, because the PR that summer was that the Dells is flooded and closed. Well, they weren't flooded. The water of the Wisconsin River would have to go 35 feet for the Dells to get flooded. That would never happen. So all in all, we minimized the negativity of the breach, and we worked on it and got it done and ready for the 2009 season, and it's carried on. It's interesting to note that this year in August, we had rains that far exceeded what we had in 2008, and the dam worked perfectly. And the lake level only went up like 5 or 6 inches during the peak of it, and all the investments that were made and all the hard work really paid off, because we know the dam and its improvements will never not function and hold water back and flood everybody out. So it was great. I'm sorry that it had to happen again, but because a lot of people in southern Wisconsin got annihilated with flooding this year. Reedsburg and Laval and all the places in the southwest part of the state really took a beating this year.
Well, to wrap up everything, what advice would you have for someone preparing for a career in a similar field as yours?
I think the most important thing from an educational standpoint is to make sure that you've taken as many of the accounting, the finance, and the marketing courses that are available, because those are the backbone of any business in the tourism sector. After that, it is having a great deal of common sense, and to focus on your interpersonal skills, because you have to be able to motivate people. You have to be able to communicate with customers, and so that whole field is critical to, that I feel, in the success or failure of anyone entering into the tourism field. I don't care whether it's a restaurant or whether it's a hotel or whether it's an attraction or whether it's a retail business. We're in the people business, and you have to treat people with respect and dignity, and give them a good value for their money.